see. All right, we are here. We are here. Happy
Hey,
Thursday, everyone. Happy Thursday.
happy Thursday.
Yes. So we are going to go ahead and kick off our Wine and Mastermind Power Talk tonight. So I am Robin Woods. I am the founder of Wine and Mastermind. And as a matter of fact, this is actually our soft launch of our Wine and Mastermind podcast. So Tiffany, you are actually one of the first ones to be a part of this. And I'm so excited about tonight. Yes. So this is our
Having me.
Yes, this is our soft launch. So the plan is we're going to begin like actually putting it out there around summer of this year, but we're doing a lot of recordings and a lot of those recordings we're doing live right now. All right.
Okay.
So thank you so much for joining. Before we jump into before I introduce you, Tiffany, I just want to share a few things. Those of you who are watching right now, those of you who are jumping in, welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for joining again. Thank you so much for taking this time out of your day. But in the chat, I want you to let me know, where are you calling in from? I want you to know, where are you joining us from tonight? All right. And Tiffany, I know you're live as well. Make sure
Yeah,
your audience
I have
is letting us
here
know.
live.
Yes, yes. Let us know. We want to know where they're calling in from tonight. Where they're joining us from.
Okay.
And as I mentioned, so we have our Wine and Mastermind podcast now, and I am being very intentional about the people that we bring on here, because our focus is going to be around wellness, lifestyle, and business. Okay, so wellness, lifestyle, and business for women. That's our focus. And so if you guys know of anybody who, you may feel maybe someone good to bring on a podcast, please let me know. Shoot me a DM, because we are looking for fabulous women who are doing amazing things right now, just in life, right?
Okay.
So that's what we want to do. We want to continue to build our community. We want to continue to build each other up in this process. So again, thank you everyone who's joining. Make sure you drop it in the chat and let me know where you are joining us from. Thank you so much for being here. And we're going to go ahead and jump into it. All right. So again, I'm Robin Woods. I am the founder of Wine and Mastermind. I'm also the author of the book, Boss Moms Move Differently. This is a guide to help moms redefine motherhood, reprioritize their well-being, and reinvent their lives. So this is what the book is about. I have the link here, bmmvbook.com. So definitely check it out if you know any moms who may be interested. I have here
Yeah,
with me.
we have to grab me a copy.
Yes, girl, please look. I appreciate the support. Grab it. I know you know somebody who will benefit from it, right? And
Yep,
especially with Mother's Day
absolutely.
coming up, we gotta. I'm trying to help as many women as possible, right? As many
Yeah,
moms. So I appreciate that support.
no
So
problem, sis.
yes, thank you, thank you. So we have here with us this evening, everyone. We have the lovely, the fabulous Tiffany Guthrie. She is the founder, the CEO, the boss mom of TMG Events. And I'm just so honored, Tiffany, to have you here this evening. Tiffany and I, we go way back, like
Yeah,
we were just talking like what, over 10 years ago, right?
it's been, yeah, we met like 10 years ago. Yeah,
Isn't that crazy? Yeah.
great.
So, yeah. So Tiffany and I still been following you on your journey. Just watching, of course, your business grow, because that's how we actually met each other. It was through business. Um,
Yep.
and I've just watched you thrive. I've watched you grow. I've watched your family grow in the process. And I just felt that you would be the perfect person to bring on here today to just share your story. So if you don't mind just sharing with everyone a little bit more about yourself.
Thank you so much for having me. First of all, I'm honored to be here, and yeah. So, how I got here? Let's see. Born and raised Dayton, Ohio. I attended Alabama A&M University. Um, College girl, out of school, had my corporate job. I worked for CNN for almost 9 years, marketing and communications. And then that role just kind of, well, after being there for like 9 years, I never would have thought that I would, leave corporate, but ended up getting out of corporate and starting TMG Events in 2015. And I had that desire to start TMG Events by planning my own wedding. I literally planned my wedding from start to finish. I did have, of course, a day of coordinator who came in who executed flawlessly. But that just gave me the drive and the push. And I was like, you know what? My wedding journey was like so amazing that I wanted to do that for other women. And TMG Events was born 2015. So I feel like I'm just jumping all around, but
No, you're not.
started that in 2015, and then well, let me back up. Got married in 2014 to my husband Philip. Started TMG Events in 2015, and then we had our first child at 2017. We had Paxton, and then Parker in 2018, and then we have Piper who is 2. So we have 6, 4, and 2. Parker, she will be 5 in June. So yeah, I'm just here. I'm a mompreneur, as they say.
Mhm.
Just juggling it all. Being a stay-at-home mom. TMG Events. I also wrote a book. I'm an author. I wrote I Am a Miracle, and you are
Yes.
too. Paxton's Journey Through the NICU. Wrote this book. My son inspired me to do that. Actually, I vowed to God if He allowed him to stay with us, that I would always share his story with the world. And that's what I did. So I was actually pregnant with, oh goodness, who was I pregnant with? I was pregnant with
Girl.
somebody. And yeah, became I published in 2020. So I was pregnant.
Mhm.
Actually, I was pregnant with Piper. So yeah, published that book in 2020 November, and yeah, sharing his book, with his story with the world.
I love it. I love it. I have to say this because, I'm thinking about like what you said. You started TMG
Mhm.
events in what 2015, and you said you got married in 2014, right? And I find it
Yes,
so beautiful by the fact that it was like life events happening that helped to prompt you into something greater, right? Like into something
yeah,
special.
yeah.
Am I breaking up? Does it sound like it's breaking up right now?
No, you're fine.
Echo?
You're fine.
Okay.
Mm-mm.
I feel like I hear echo right now. Um, and I want you all, if you hear an echo, let us know.
Hey,
Yes,
Steph.
Stephanie. Hey, Stephanie.
I'm gonna
Thank you
tag
for
your.
joining.
What's your IG, Robin? R O. What's
It's
your IG?
the Robin Woods, the ROBYN.
The Robin Woods. Let me
Uh-huh.
see.
I love it. I love it. But yeah, if you all are hearing an echo, let us know because I want to make sure it's clear.
I think I did right. Yeah. Okay.
I know,
Yeah.
small world, right?
It is. It is.
I love it. I love it. I love it. All right. So, but no, I just think it's just it's amazing just to hear that, right? So like you had a moment where you got married, right? And then out of you getting married, the process of getting married, you birthed your business, right? I just find that so amazing. And then on top of that,
Now you're explaining that. I'm like, okay, I love seeing it from somebody else's perspective. So
yes, that's a
that's
beautiful thing. Like, and even with your son, right? Like, you went through a life, life through life, and right, you went through a life experience, but you turned that into something so beautiful as a book. Now you're sharing the story. Now you're helping other families. Now you're helping other mothers out there. So kudos to you, girl. Kudos to you.
listen, thank you for that. Like,
Yeah.
sometimes these you need to hear things, and a lot of times, hi,
Hey,
thank
Kanisha.
you. A lot of times, God, through my journey, God speaks through other people to me. So I receive that. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So I want you to kind of let's break that down a little bit, right? Like you kind of share with us, how you started and how your business got started. I ain't gonna lie though, I do want to hear about that wedding, especially if that was the first thing. Like and I feel like I saw this somewhere, like maybe on one of your posts, and I think I saw like your wedding. I feel like that was you, and I was like, oh, this girl really did it up. And so that was you the whole time. Like you're the one who planned this whole event and put that together.
So yes. So my background, I mean, what I basically did at CNN, I was the awards coordinator. So I basically helped win journalistic awards for the company. I planned everything. So I just have those skills, those attention to detail, just managing, planning, all of that. So when it was time for me to plan my wedding, I don't know, it just naturally came to me. I'm a naturally planner anyway. So yeah, I literally planned and picked every single thing out, every detail, every detail. My friends call me the warden because they know that I like things in a particular order. So it was nothing different, during my wedding journey. I had everything, every detail lined up.
Was it local or was it something that was like,
Yeah, it was here. It was here in Atlanta.
okay, in Atlanta?
It was at the Biltmore ballrooms.
Okay, very familiar with the
I
Biltmore.
called it. I was like, this is like the dream place to get married at. And yep, we
I
got
love
married
it.
at the Biltmore.
I
Beautiful, beautiful venue. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Biltmore is yeah, that's like the dream wedding venue.
Fairy tale. And that's what I wanted. I wanted like a fairy tale, Cinderella, horse and carriage. We had all of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Good kudos to you, girl. I love that. Come on, Biltmore. I know that's right.
To my wedding coordinator, Ellie B, who was doing her thing. So that kudos to her.
Mhm.
Yeah, I got with Ellie like back in the day, and she is just like, I'm just so proud of her, and
Yeah.
all the amazing things that she's doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well, let
kudos
me
to her.
just I have to share this because as you know, when you and I met, I had a photography business.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
you were one
You
of the
got my
ones
bridal shower.
I did. I forgot all about
You
that.
got
That's
my bridal shower. Absolutely. Right at the was it the 12? The 12.
I completely forgot. Like my
Yep, my best friend, Bernadette Birch. She that's where the connection is from her. Yep,
Okay. Okay.
yep.
Wow. So it's
Mhm.
funny because yes, I remember that. I shot, maybe I did shoot yours. I remember that even
Mhm.
after that, though, you were referring me to other events. And
Yeah.
you were the one who kind of opened up doors for me during the time when I had my photography business. You don't even know, you don't even realize it.
Oh,
Like, and
wow.
yes, and I say that because those of you who are watching, like Tiffany is on her stuff. And I'm saying that from personal experience because I've seen you working behind the scenes in terms of how how you manage your business. And that was such a great thing for me to see as a early entrepreneur, right? Like when in their early stages of just seeing that level of professionalism, attention to detail, like you were on your stuff, like even
Thank
what
you.
10 years ago, right? So I can only imagine what it's like right now at this point. So
Look,
I had to share that.
I'm trying to reel it all back in.
Yeah,
Once you have kids, it changes a little things.
it changes.
But I'm trying to, yeah, get back to,
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about that
yeah.
because I know to your point, and that was kind of the shift for me. So like when I was in my photography business, one of the reasons why I shifted away from my photography business was because I had younger kids, right? Like I
Mhm.
had younger kids, and I started to realize that it just wasn't a conducive schedule for me because I was really heavy on the weddings. Like I had kind of grown in the wedding scene and
Yeah.
I was like leaving and I'm working a full-time job, right? And so for me, it was kind of like I didn't realize what it was. It took me a while to kind of figure out what was going on when I was in my full-time job,
Mhm.
trying to be a new mom, basically for two
Mhm.
kids under the age of 2 and, running this business. And I didn't realize that it was just not the right business model for me at the time. Right.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
for you, looking at your story, it looks like you've been able to kind of figure it out, along the way. Like I'm sure there've been some bumps and bruises along the way, but kind of
Yeah.
share that. Let's talk about what were some of those changes that maybe you had to face from the time that, let's say, you were married, right? And so you had no kids, you're running your business and you're kind of building it from that point. But what were some of those changes that happened in between that time?
So I will say that, you know, I I am blessed to have a supportive husband, who's been there from the beginning. Um, he he allowed me to just stay home with our child Paxton, and thank God that I was one day I was working, and I was actually working for a nonprofit organization. And I was just like, I can't do this. Like, I cannot be stressed out working. I think I was like maybe 4 months pregnant. And he was just like, just quit. Like, I got you. I got us. Like, just quit. And thank God that I did, looking back, because literally not even full 2 months later, I had Paxton at 23 weeks and 4 days. So I know that was all God. Like, he allowed me to stop working at this stressful job at that moment, and not even knowing few weeks later I was going to be having Paxton.
Yeah.
So being home and being at that hospital every day, day in and day out, that was my job. So that was my purpose in that moment. So when I did have babies in between, of course, I would take breaks with TMG. And then like when he got a little bit older and I felt up to it, I would take on more clients. I feel like every time that I question if I'm supposed to be doing events or what's my purpose, I feel like God sends me a client. I kid you not, somebody will call me or text me, hey, do you still do events? Or, and I'm like, yeah, literally not even just thinking like, wait, I was just thinking, should I be doing this? And I'll get a phone call or I'll get a text or whatever.
Yeah.
So it would pick back up. And then once Paxton was still in the NICU, he was 6 months. He hadn't even came home yet. We found out we were pregnant with Parker. And events was just kind of slow, but then after I had the baby, it would pick back up. So I would take breaks in between.
Okay. Okay.
So that's that kind of went.
So Paxton was the first.
Paxton is the oldest. Yep. I had him at 23 weeks, 4 days.
Okay.
In the NICU, he came home the day he turned 7 months.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. Well, thank God. And I saw Kenitra bless that man. And I'm sure referring to the hubby. Yes.
Yes, he's man. I will say, he has sense.
Yeah. I love that. I love that so much for you. So I'm curious, when you were working with, you said CNN, right? You're working during the time you were working with CNN. Did you ever see yourself like actually being did you ever think to yourself?
No,
like,
never.
You never thought that. So you saw yourself more so like just kind of retiring in the day.
Yes, my grandfather always instilled in me and my sister, after college, you get a job and you work your way up that ladder, and you get your 401, you built that up, and you retire with that company. So that was my mental. That's how I was trained to. So I'm like, I just knew that I would be at CNN and I would climb that corporate ladder, and that's where I would retire. Wow. So all of this whole entrepreneur thing is all like, it was shocking, for me. It didn't feel right.
Yeah.
Now that's what the world is all about now, is entrepreneurship. So
to some degree, right? Like I think for me, I feel like personally, I feel like everybody should have something. I'm not saying that everybody is built for
right.
full-time entrepreneurship, but I do believe that everybody should have some kind of side job, side business, something, side hustle. Like I feel like everybody should have it, because after working in corporate, especially in an HR capacity, and seeing how quickly, a company can one day decide that I love you, and the next minute they're like, you're out of here. Like that was something that always made me cringe. And I always felt, I never felt settled in that. Like knowing that, wait a minute, my livelihood is dependent on somebody else's feelings at a lot of times, or decisions, about things. And so I strongly encourage, and I say this all the time, not necessarily, full-time entrepreneurship for everybody, but sometimes, I'm not going to say sometimes, in all cases, you need to have some kind of backup, right, for yourself. And a lot of times we find that from me, what I've heard from other like entrepreneurs and things of that nature, a lot of times it's just going through, identifying those things in your life that you're already doing anyway. Because you probably were already doing that, right? From your attention to detail, you did it for yourself. You were your first client, right? And you were able to kind of see that vision and move forward, actually take action on it. So I'm curious to know, what were some of those, because your point about working in corporate for 10 years, right, and then shifting to full-time entrepreneurship, I know you said there was a lot that you had to face. What were some of those things that you had to face? What were some of those mental blocks? What were some of those belief systems that maybe you had
Oh
to
goodness.
completely eliminate?
Am I doing the right thing? Sometimes it would eat at me. Like I want to go back to corporate. Like I don't even feel like this is right for me. Um, yeah, and that's right. Most of our generation was groomed. That was my mental. I was groomed to stay at a job, climb that ladder, and just retire. So
Yep.
just getting out and trying to figure things out on my own, it just kind of it scared me. It made me feel uncomfortable. I did go back to school and I got my executive MBA, so that will help me out, as far as from a business aspect.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was pregnant with Parker when actually, let me back up. I was pregnant with Paxton when I first started the program. First girl ever, like to be pregnant, and it's crazy now thinking back. And I actually wanted to quit the program when I
I'm
had
sure.
Paxton. I did. I wanted to quit, but Philip was like, No, you're not going to quit. You want to keep going." And I'm like, you know what? My son is fighting for his life, so I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to finish this program out.
Ooh.
So I did. Literally 2 weeks after I had him, I had to stand up in front of the class and do a presentation. Like they didn't care. So yeah.
Wow. Okay. So yeah, so you what I heard you say was that you had something, you had a why behind that, right? Like you said your son was fighting for his life. So you were like, "Oh no,
Yep.
I got to make this thing happen."
Yes.
And
Yes.
sometimes that's what it takes, having that why behind what you're doing, right? That keeps us in the game, keeps our head in the game. I tell people all the time, I'm like, you got to have that why.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is your why now? I'm curious. Like what, now that, Paxton he's thriving, things are going well. What do you kind of
My
identify as like your why now with staying in
my
business?
kids, Paxton, Parker, and Piper are my why.
Yeah.
Like when I feel like just giving up, they're looking at me. Those girls are looking at me.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
they are absolutely my why to just keep going. And I just always pray every day, like, please just give me that little mustard seed of just a little push to just keep going,
Yeah.
and I get through. I get through
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with you because I think for me personally, I look at
Mhm.
my kids, of course, right?
Mhm.
But it's something about having a daughter too.
Yep.
Like being a woman, and I just think about how I struggle, kind of like when we talk about like the mindset. I feel like I'm breaking up. Am I breaking up or anything?
No,
Okay, okay,
fine.
okay, perfect. But I personally, I struggled for a very long time when it came to moving into entrepreneurship from a
Mhm.
mindset standpoint with pricing, number one, like, because in corporate, a lot of times, you know, you have they give you a certain salary based on like years of experience or based
Yep.
on, time worked, the amount of time that you're working and all of, so many other factors. And a lot of times it's, again, I'm not going to say a lot of times, sometimes it can be very subjective in terms of when they're
Mhm.
identifying, salaries and things of that nature. But for me, moving into entrepreneurship, I think the biggest challenge for me was, how do I price this, right? Like, do I really feel like I'm good enough to be able to even price it at this
Mhm.
particular price point? Because I haven't been in the game for 10 years, right? Like, as you know, a lot of times when you're corporate, you're rewarded for being in a particular role or a particular field for X amount of years. Versus entrepreneurship, it's like it's a game changer. It's like you really
Yeah.
don't have a cap, but people, I think more than anything, people want to know, what is the value, right? Like they're looking for, what is the value? People will pay, but they're looking for the value in that more than anything. So I would
Yeah.
say for me, that was probably my biggest like mindset block in terms
Mhm.
of moving from, you know, and I still actually work now. So I still have a job that I absolutely
Mhm.
love. Let me just say that. So I'm a corporate trainer, absolutely love it, but I do my business on the side in terms of like coaching and consulting as well. So it's kind of like
Okay.
I've been able to kind of find my happy medium now
Yeah.
at this point, right? And even with that, and I kind of want to hit on this point that you talked about, where you talked about kind of resting. You talked
Mhm.
about where there were times in terms of you running your business as you had children, you were growing your family, you were taking the time to just kind of pause. And maybe you didn't use the word rest, but you said you were pausing, right? You paused in. So like, what were some things that, because I know, having a child, right? Like that in itself tells you like, yeah, girl, you need to stop. Your body just,
Yeah,
you just need to sit
absolutely.
down. Like it will sit everybody. You would take several seats after having a kid, right? Especially when you have young ones. But I'm curious to know if you experience any moments where maybe you were just kind of pushing yourself, right? And maybe it led to something else.
Mhm.
Maybe it led to something further. Did you ever experience anything like that?
I would say that, you know, women, we're our worst critics. And when I say that, I am so hard on myself, so hard on myself. I'm
Yeah.
working on it, but I am very hard on myself. I am a success driven person. So if I don't feel like I'm doing something that will make me successful, then I'm just going crazy in my mind. Like I'm like, okay, what do I what can I achieve next? What is next? What's next? I'm always thinking about what's next, trying to achieve the next best thing, you know.
Right.
Um, I guess the older I'm getting, and kids will make you sit down. And I'm just trying to just enjoy every moment with being with them, you
Yeah.
know, and trying to um just not let this time like just fly by, because you know they always say like time just flies by. So I'm really just learning to just sit in each moment with them.
Mhm.
Thankful that I am able to be home with them. I am able to watch them grow into these little amazing, to me, perfect little human beings,
Right.
um, that I'm just blessed to be able to mold. And, you know, so it's just, I'm thankful to be here and at home for every milestone. I've never missed a milestone. I'm flexible if they need me at school or wherever. I'm doctor's appointments. I'm that
You're
mom.
there. I love it.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm just, you know, blessed to be able to be in a position to be able to do that, you know, because a lot of people aren't. So
Right.
right. Still do what I love, events, you know. I love curating special moments and occasions for people.
Yeah. 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 No, I get that. And to your point, like, yeah, it's a blessing to be able to have, that space where you can kind of be home. And I'll be honest with you, even though I'm working.
It's not for the weak at heart.
Oh, listen.
Let me put that out there. It is not for the weak at heart. And I never in my wildest dreams, I never thought that I would be in this position to be a mompreneur, stay-at-home mom. I mean, I always knew that I wanted to get married. Of course, I want to have kids, but being a stay-at-home mom, a housewife, nah, that was not. No, I'm good. Like
That was
that was never furthest thing from my mind.
so
So yeah.
let me share this with you. So I actually talk about this in my book because and I do commend like stay at home.
Sleep. Somebody said, "Where's my baby?" He's sleep, Nurse Jessica. He's sleep.
But I will say this, like I experienced this and I talked about this in my book where at one point I was a stay-at-home mom. I was like, I'm gonna give it a shot because part of that was because my mom stayed home. So it was like five of us, right? And I want to say now clearly she wasn't at home with all five of us at one time because we have like
Right.
older siblings and things of that nature. But I'm sure at some point there was probably on average like 2 to 3 kids at home at a time
Mhm.
when she was a stay-at-home mom. And it was during our early years. And so for me, when I became a mom, I
Mhm.
felt like, well, maybe this is something that I need to do. Maybe I need to be a stay-at-home as well. And even my husband's mom stayed at home with them for their first, couple of years as well.
Yeah.
Girl,
Yeah.
listen, I got I did it for like 14 months. I
Yeah.
loved it. I love the fact that I could, watch my daughter, say her first words, first steps,
Mhm.
first friends, like you say, all the milestones, right?
Mhm.
Cutting teeth, like all of that. But girl, it was just something I knew. I was like, this is just not for me.
Right.
Like I came to the point where I was like, this is like God knows what I'm capable of, right? And so I made the decision that I was going to go back into a a job at the time. I was just going to go back into a job. And I feel like I kind of jumped into that quick too. Like I feel like I jumped back into it full time, maybe too quickly versus
Yeah.
actually kind of
Tiptoeing in.
gradually, yeah, like putting myself in that position. But I would say, for you stay at home moms, anybody who stay at home, kudos to
Yeah.
you. I give all the love because that's not for everybody. Like you say, it's
Yeah.
just not. It's still a job. Like that's a job in
It
itself.
is. It is. Yeah.
You
And
know.
I still have my business. I still want to work. Like I still want to, just do more.
Yeah,
So
yeah. No, I get it. I get it. And let's kind of go back to, I want to hit on like your business and in terms of, we talked about wellness. So we kind of talked about with you kind of taking your breaks and how with what you currently do. Number one, I love the fact that you still have a business that you love, but you can also manage that, right? You can manage it with still being a mompreneur. So I think that's
yeah.
a really important note to kind of mention here is that you actually found a business that's in alignment with what everything you got going on in your household.
Mhm.
Versus kind of what I know for me personally, working in this business is one thing to just work a business, but
Mhm.
not working in a business where it's not in alignment with the things that you really want, the kind of
Right.
lifestyle that you really want, right? Like, do you find yourself, are you able to kind of like travel and events and things like that?
I am actually. I started with, I'm a contractor with the Grant Access. And this is an amazing, amazing group of people. I started with them in 2018, I want to say, but then um, 2020 with COVID hit, so we kind of like stopped doing things, and I would do contracting with them then. But now that COVID is over, we've started picking up like a lot more events. We recently just did the HBCU spring coming in New York and also in Birmingham. So I travel like that's why I was like, this, see, things just come when it's supposed to come. But
Yeah.
me working with the grant access not only allows me to do what I love to do, working events, but it allows me to travel. It allows me just to be Tiffany, not wife, not mommy, mama, none, just Tiffany, So it's honestly, it's working with the grant access has allowed me to really get back to myself.
Ooh. So did you
It,
see that? Did you anticipate that being the case? Like, did you know that pursuing this opportunity would kind of bring you back to you?
I did not honestly, like when I first started working with them, of course, they know, because I mean it's a group of planners. The girls, they're all moms, most of them are moms, so it's like it's our own little community, like we all understand what's going on, but at the same time we work, we do work very hard. So it's like they get it, they get being a wife, they get being a mom, but they also get working in your working in your purpose, and doing what makes you happy. um but it's just everything that I needed, honestly.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
really is. And I guess I didn't realize it at the time, but the more that I started traveling and started just working, it just motivated me more. You know, battling with postpartum, I battled with it with Parker and also with Piper.
Mhm.
You get in that dark space, and I had a dark cloud over my head for a while. I'm not gonna sit here and say I didn't, because I did. I felt everything. I didn't experience postpartum with Paxton so much because I didn't have time to sit in it, because I was back and forth at the hospital every single day.
Yeah.
But with Parker being home with her, and Paxton having two little babies, 14 months apart, yeah, it's postpartum definitely started setting in.
Yeah.
And then I was finally getting back to myself, working out, losing weight. And then Parker's second birthday, we found out we were pregnant again with Piper. So it took me back. I'm like, dang, just when I start to feel like I'm getting back to myself, I end up pregnant again with our
Yeah.
COVID, well, look, our quarantine baby.
Yeah.
So Yeah, definitely had postpartum again with her. And yeah, the grant access is really what I needed, when I
So,
needed it. So
okay, so it's a couple of things I just want to highlight what you just said. So you had postpartum, which is a very real thing, right? And it's funny because
yeah.
I experienced postpartum anxiety, which I didn't even
Mhm.
know. I didn't realize that I had it until like later. It was like I was out of it before I realized what was going on with me, right? And so I
Mhm.
had things going on, and of course my husband, I didn't even know how to communicate that to my husband. So I'm curious to know for you, and especially if someone is listening, like, did you know at the time that you were actually going through that? Was it somebody who maybe helped you identify that, maybe you may be
Mhm.
experiencing some postpartum, you know?
Um, I mean, I've always just heard about postpartum. I've heard about the symptoms,
Yeah.
um, feeling just not feeling like yourself, crying, just bust out crying, emotion. I'm already an emotional person. I'm a Cancer, so I'm already a high emotional person anyway. But just I knew that I was experiencing postpartum when I felt heavy. Like I just felt like a ton of bricks was on my shoulder. I just felt like a dark cloud was over my head. Of course, I'm putting on a smile, but
Like you do.
inside,
Yeah.
yeah, like we do, we just keep going, we smile and we keep going. But inside, I just felt I almost felt empty. And I
Hmm.
almost felt like, what's my purpose?
Yeah.
Purpose here.
Yeah.
So I start feeling those feelings. I'm like, okay, I know like something is going on mentally. I
Yeah.
know this is postpartum. Um, but yeah, I
And I want
definitely, and
no,
it takes a while. Like it's not something that it's not like a light switch that goes on and off.
right.
I definitely, of course, a lot of praying. I don't know. I just was pushing through, honestly.
Yeah.
And at that time, I going through that I didn't have a therapist then. I have one now, but I didn't have a therapist then when I was going through postpartum.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Same for
and
me.
talking to her now, we're just now like peeling back layers of what triggers me, things that if I hear something, the beeping noises with, if I hear my kids cough, automatically my anxiety is up because
Yeah.
I'm thinking about Paxton in the NICU. So it's like we're peeling back all of those layers. But like I said, when I was going through postpartum, I didn't have a therapist. It was just me, like just pushing through it and talking to my friends or my mom, my sister, and just praying about it, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, and so, but the fact that you were talking about it, right? Like you had somebody to
Yeah.
talk about it too, right? And sometimes, people like to your point, I didn't have a therapist at the
Mhm.
time because again, I knew I had heard of postpartum, but for whatever reason, it for me during that time, I just didn't realize what I was actually in, like what was
Yeah.
going on. I knew because the thing is with postpartum, I remember reading about it, and it was like, I feel like it changed because at some point they were saying like postpartum was like, 6 to 8 weeks. Then it would be like
Mhm.
6 months. And then depending on the different source, it's like a year
To
after,
18 months.
maybe
Yeah.
two
Yeah.
years after, right? And so for me, I remember going through it like it was maybe like 6 months to a year later. And I was like, well, no, this couldn't be postpartum. Like this is, something else.
Absolutely.
And,
Mhm.
and at the time I was feeling like something was wrong with me. I'm like, well,
Mhm.
maybe something is wrong. And I eventually ended up getting out of it. And I think to your point, I utilized the people around me, right? I used
Yeah.
prayer for sure. Like God was literally
Absolutely.
the one to get me out of all of that. And also just talking to people about it. Which kind of leads me to my next question. And thank you for sharing that. I appreciate you sharing that about just
I
the
don't
whole
think I ever
process.
spoke about it. So thank you for allowing me to use your platform to
Oh
talk
girl.
about it. Absolutely.
Yes, yes. And it's needed. It is definitely needed. And just to kind of hit on that point even further, when you mentioned NICU. So my son was in NICU as well. He had jaundice, and it was like a high risk type jaundice, and it was maybe for like a week at the time when
Mhm.
he was in there. And I remember to your point, and again, I wouldn't have even thought of this, but like what you were saying, like the beeping noises and like certain things that just kind of triggered me, right? Like with him being in that NICU during that time had me on edge about everything. Everything. It's crazy,
Yeah.
right? But yeah, so again, thank you for sharing that, because that was something that kind of brought me back, and I can even see things now in terms of, if little things happen where I may just overcompensate for it, right? Or over respond to those things, which ultimately, and those are the challenges, right? Like a lot of times as moms, and I think it's so good that you hit on the point of kind of peeling back the layers, because a lot of times there are things even with our children, right? That may have occurred with our children, or even with us as children, right? As kids, right? And we may be overcompensating and responding a certain way now, which may be completely exhausting us. Like some of that may be causing more exhaustion in our lives than what we really even realize. But it's because we haven't really addressed what the issue is anyway. We haven't really addressed what those triggers are, where they came from. Did it come from my personal childhood, or did it come from when I actually went through the process of actually having a child? So I think that's something to really think about, as we're talking through this. Like I never even thought about that, but yeah. And that
the
again,
process of having a child. Whew.
Yeah. The whole
all of my babies were in the NICU. But thankfully the girls, both of them were discharged when I was. So I've had traumatic deliveries. I've not, you see on TV, the mom had the baby, and most women, do, if they have a baby, it's on them, and stay in the room. I never got to experience that with none of my kids. So
wow. That's deep, girl. That's I appreciate that. Do you find yourself now, like now that you're having to travel out, do you find yourself with any type of, and I'm sharing this because I suffer with this in my job. With me, I travel for work, and I enjoyed the aspect of being able to travel for work, right? Finding something that was fulfilling and exciting for me, helping other people, right? But it was like, I struggle a lot just to be away from my kids, right? It was like this emotional, detachment. And I don't think that ever goes away. I really don't. I just don't think that it ever goes away for a lot of us. But I'm curious to know, like, how do you deal with it? Like when if you have those moments, how do you deal with it?
Yeah, I absolutely do. Like my anxiety is high anyway. I do. I miss my kids, when I'm away from them for work. So I'm always just either calling in, just to check on them, FaceTiming. Recently, actually, I was in Birmingham working on the HBCU Spring Coming, and I missed my daughter's first daddy-daughter dance. Of course, I got her laid everything out for her. My sister came over and she executed for me, got her all dolled up. But that day, like my emotions was all over the place. Like I've never, missed. So, but of course I was on FaceTime the whole time. I just felt guilty. I felt guilty
that mom guilt.
That mom guilt definitely kicked my butt that day. But they made sure that I was on FaceTime with her and the whole way. So just FaceTiming, just calling, checking in. That's how honestly I get through it. Yeah.
Same here. It's funny because I do that, and I would FaceTime, and I'll be checking in probably way more than I needed to. It's especially if I like going like a girls trip or something, right? Like again, because I don't think it ever goes away, but it's just kind of being in that moment, allowing yourself to be in those emotions, right? But then doing what you can to work through it. So I'm like, I thank God for FaceTime now, like being able to do that. But another thing I would do is, I would, and I still do it now to this day. Like if I go, if I happen to go out of town, or if I'm doing something where I know, like even like me doing my lives, right? Like I try to find a way to work around that where I can still get my time in with them and do, different things. Like this weekend, our whole weekend is like jam packed. We got a lot of things going on. And so I knew, I was like, from Thursday to Sunday, we won't have any like family time, right? And so last night I actually did a movie night with my kids. I was like, we're gonna do it like a little quick movie night, so I could just kind of get that time in with them where we can, that bonding time, right? So this weekend, which they come and go, right? When I'm not able to get to it, we still have those moments we can kind of fill it into our schedule.
Yeah.
So that's at least been my workaround.
Right. I can identify with that. One of my work trips, we turned it into a family vacation.
Yeah,
Went and worked on a wedding. We drove down, we packed the kids up, we drove down. They stayed at the hotel while I went and worked. And afterwards, we just stayed a few days and went to the beach, hung out, and just turned it into a family thing.
I
So,
love that.
and yeah, we try to, be
Incorporate
together,
everybody.
great
Yeah,
with everybody. Right.
yeah.
Right.
No, I love that. I love that. Okay, so one other point that you hit on earlier, you were talking about two things where you said you kind of leaned on your family, right? Like you leaned on your family when you were kind of going through the postpartum, but then also now you have this new community of women, right? Like who you're working with.
Yes.
And to me, it sounds like you've built a village, like in
Hmm.
that process.
Yeah.
Like you have your family village, but then now it sounds like you have, even with your business, you have a community of women who are
Yes.
supporting, who understand you, right? They get you and they're supporting you. Were you intentionally kind of going after that, or was that something that just
No,
kind of
no.
happened?
Actually, yeah, it just kind of happened. Honestly, it just kind of
Wow.
happened. And I'm like, this is so dope. Like, because when I first got introduced to the group, my friend Sharia Lloyd introduced me to Sharia Barlow, who was founder of the Grant Access. Um, she was like, I think you all will be dope if you work together. It's a group of planners. So when Sharia was putting together her team, I don't even think she realized like we're all moms. We're all, some of us have outside of Grant Access have our own businesses.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, when I came into it, I was like, this is so dope. Like I just be so inspired, by other women, and it's guys too that work on the team, but just creative mind, creative people. I'm just
Yeah.
very inspired every time I go and work on a project.
Yeah.
And it's even better, because like I said, a lot of them have kids, some of them are married. So it's like we just sit around, show pictures of our kids when we're together. We'll FaceTime and be like, all right, y'all, let's go chill out or go, just go hang out. So it's pretty cool. We have a good time. We
That's
work hard.
dope.
We have a good time. Yeah.
Yeah, but it makes
It's
things better. It makes things
yeah.
better when you're around people who, number one, you like, right? People you
Yep.
like, people you enjoy being around, and people who just get you. So I just,
Yep.
yeah, I wanted to bring that point up because I think village is so important, like
Yep.
personally and professionally, right? Having
Hmm.
that village in some capacity kind of helps. I know, at least for me, that's what's kind of helped me to stay in, certain positions. It's like once I find my tribe, I'm like, I can ride with you, right? People who I really like. But I think it's even
Hmm.
more important in business. I do. I
Yeah.
do believe that it's
Absolutely.
even more because business is a lonely journey. It's such a
Yeah.
lonely journey, right? Even if you, and I say this even for people who have side hustles, side jobs, whatever the case is, it can get very lonely. And I
Yeah.
know for me, because when I was doing my photography business, at first I was in my little bubble, right? Because I was like, I don't have time. I felt like I didn't really have time to network and connect with other people because I'm working in this full-time job, right?
Right.
So I'm are there any things, any tips that you can share with our listeners in terms of like how do you find, like, even outside of you, because I know you have, it kind of happened, right, organically, but
Yeah.
are there any tips or strategies that you could share with just finding other people outside of your network, especially for busy moms, right? Like when you have your hands full.
Um, I would say just kind of like find like different maybe networking events. Um,
Yeah.
or just yeah. I mean, for me, I'm thankful that I didn't have to do that. It just kind of, I don't know, God, he just kind of laid it all out for me, to be honest. Like he just brought the right people to me, you know. Just always being yourself too. I will say that. Always being true to yourself, just always being yourself. Um, and everything will just gravitate to you, like
I
yeah.
will say this, Tiffany, because knowing you, I remember again, when you and I first met, I feel like
Mhm.
you were very intentional about connecting with people, like even at events, right? Like in doing what you were doing,
Too. Yes, very intentional. Yes,
you were very
always.
intentional about it. Yeah, I felt like you were like hey, like open to the relationships, open to the connections,
Yeah.
versus being closed off. And the reason why I bring that up is because, again, kind of going back to busy moms, right? Or busy women. If we don't necessarily have time to just be, attending every networking event out there, because I burnt myself out trying to do that. I'm not gonna lie. I was like,
Yeah.
I can't attend every event. It's a lot. I know you could do virtually, right? Like it's ways you can connect with Facebook groups. But one of the ways that I found it to be the most effective ways of just kind of connecting with people is just finding those opportunities when I'm actually doing my own work, right? Like
Mhm.
just being open to those relationships. So like when I was a photographer, I remember I was like, I'm trying to connect with the coordinators, the planners, the
Right.
designers, everybody, right? Like
Mhm.
just to kind of help expand my network in that village.
Yeah.
So yeah, I
Yeah,
love
I
it.
would agree. Because I mean, I don't go to a lot of networking events. Like I said, it just kind of organically happens for me.
Yeah.
So
Yep. Who is that? I don't see the name, but someone mentioned that is where I am too, in my bubble. Any suggestions are welcome. Oh, we just kind of went through that also. Yeah, I would say, and if any of you who are watching, put it in the chat. Share with everyone else. We would love to hear, like, what are some ways that you've been able to just get out of your bubble? Like how, especially when you're a busy working, or working professional, like working mom, working woman. What are some ways that you've been able to just kind of expand yourself, especially because I'm not gonna lie, when I started having kids, I feel like I became more of an introvert. Now, my husband,
mm,
he disagrees with that whole statement. Like he's like, no, you are an extrovert. Like, and I
mhm.
do enjoy meeting people, but I feel like I have that place where I'm like, okay, girl, I gotta recharge, right?
Yeah.
But I'm curious if anybody can share that in the chat. What are some ways that maybe you have been able to just expand your network?
Hmm.
Okay, because we are here to get it, y'all. In wellness, in business, all of it. We are here to get it. So definitely share. All right, Tiffany, I want to let me make sure I check on time. I want to make sure I respect the time. Um, I do want to talk about I know you talked about your shift, right? So your shift coming from the corporate setting into full-time entrepreneurship. Are there any mindsets, any people, any habits, anything that maybe you had to stop? Like, certain mindsets that maybe you were just like, I can't continue to adopt the same mindset in order to
Hmm.
grow my business. Were there certain
Hmm.
habits or patterns, anything that you can think of that you knew just was no longer useful for you in that transition?
I would say definitely questioning myself.
Ooh,
Um,
good.
yeah, questioning myself, getting in my own way.
That's
Yeah, when
good.
I got out of my way, and just let things happen how it's supposed to, never questioning my worth, never questioning my talents that God gave for me, not comparing myself to anybody,
Come on now.
you know. I had to I'm not the type like when I get on social media, I compare myself to people because I mean, you got a million event planners. You got if you go into a store, you go down the aisle of loaf of bread. It's a million different types of loaves of bread. And that's okay. But everybody is not gonna, you have your people who like what you do. You may have people that like well, and it's okay. Just always just stay true to you and just keep doing you. Don't worry about nobody else. You
That's
know,
right.
I've never been that person. So I just, just focus on what I'm doing. And when it's my time, it's my time. What God got for me is for me. And what he has for you is for you.
I
And just
love it.
I just remember that. Yeah.
I love that. So stop questioning yourself, right? Stop, in other
Mhm.
words, stop
Just
wondering the
do it.
question, am I good enough,
Just do
right? Is this good enough? Overthinking,
it.
because a lot of times that's where the overthinking comes from.
Overthinking. Yeah. Yep. And it's hard. I will say it is hard to stop overthinking, and one of my other things is stop trying to be so perfect at everything. You know,
Correct.
stop
That's
being. It doesn't exist. Being
ever
perfect doesn't exist.
in
So
terms of being a mom.
yeah, in terms of being a mom, an entrepreneur, it's you're always. Every time I do an event, I learn something. What can I do better? You know.
Yeah.
Um, so you get better and just be okay with not being perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. And for me, I'm glad you hit that point, Tiffany, because like for me in my journey, again, which I feel like this has stifled just my growth in terms of entrepreneurship previously, right?
Mhm.
Was that, coming from a corporate setting and feeling, especially being a minority in a corporate setting in leadership and feeling like I had to show up a certain way. And you know how it is, like everything has got to be perfect for us
Absolutely.
oftentimes compared to some of our counterparts, right? And so I think that's probably been my biggest challenge along the way is shifting the mindset of, I have to have everything 100% perfect versus when you're
Yep.
in business, it's a little different, right? Because really you're building something from the ground up. My coach said this and I loved it. And it kind of had me to look at things a little bit differently. But she talked about where, you're building something from the ground up. And so in order for that to happen, you got to make mistakes, right? Like you got to make mistakes. You got to have, yes, exactly, Kenitra, room for error. Room for error. You got to allow yourself that grace to have room for error and to
Yep.
make those mistakes because that's the only way you're going to learn. Just like any other, large corporation or businesses out there. So I definitely agree with that. And that's probably the biggest one that resonates with me and definitely second guessing myself, in some areas.
Yeah.
So no, I love that. I want to go back to before we before we wrap up, I do want to hit on what a few of our audience members have shared with us. Tiara mentioned, and then we talked about building a village, just kind of going back to our question about how do you build a village, especially when you're an introvert, right? And Tiara shared finding a community that feels in alignment with you. I agree 100%. Finding that community, right? And sometimes that's some trial and error.
It
Now, I
is.
will say this. Let me say this. I have found, and I don't know if this is more so the extrovert side of me, right? Like this, I do prefer to find people like face to face. A lot of times my connection starts face to face first. Like, because when I was trying to build those relationships like virtually, like through Facebook groups, it never really I never felt like I really connected. I don't know. That may just be me.
I feel the same. I feel like I would want to do more face to face versus I don't do well with the group chats and
Either.
all that sitting going back and forth. Like I just never been that type of person,
Me
and
either.
I don't do it. Like I mean, I'll post stuff. If people comment or I'll comment back or I'll just say thanks or whatever. But some people like just put. I feel like some people just get on Facebook or get on Instagram and post things just to I don't know, just to
Just to
post
be
or just
seen.
to yeah, just to be seen or
No purpose.
just start a conversation. And when they start conversations, like they just where do you have time to just sit and argue with people or go or converse back and forth all day? Like I don't have that type of time to
No,
be
or
sitting there.
energy. Yeah, it's a different
Yeah,
kind of breed.
I'm just not interested. I'm not.
And
I'm
let me
interested in
say this, because I was looking at this group just today, and it was a new group that I joined. Kind of going back to building your village. A lot of times you can kind of tell in those virtual groups, like Facebook groups, the type of
yeah.
people that are in there. Because to me, this is just
Yep.
my opinion. If the moderator, because I have a Facebook
Yeah.
group, if the moderator is allowing that kind of foolishness, that already
Yeah.
tells me like, no, this is not the group. So a
Exactly.
lot of times I'll like go through and I'll look through the comments just to kind of see how people are responding to certain questions and certain things. And if it's not the type of responses that I'm in alignment with, or the language in which, we communicate, I'm like, oh no, this is not the group for me. So that's another way that I kind of, when I'm looking for virtual groups, that's a way that I kind of assess, like, is this really working for me or not? Yeah. But I agree. There are some people, they just like to
Yeah.
talk. They just like to be seen with no
Just
purpose at all.
right.
The last one I wanted to share, Kenitra, she says, share with people what I do, what I'm passionate about, then ask the same questions to the folks I'm encountering. Yep. Very easy ice-breaking conversations, right? I think I would agree. Thank you for sharing that, Kenitra. All right, so we have, we're running up on an hour now, girl. This has been so good, and you have shared.
That's it.
You feel like what?
I said I feel like it's only been 10 minutes. It doesn't feel
Girl,
like it's
we just been talking, girl, and I love the fact
we have to do it again.
no, we have to, and I feel like we just kind of pick back up where we left off from, like from years ago. So, like I
And
say,
that's how you know it's genuine.
yes,
That's how you know it's
exactly.
genuine.
Exactly. I want you to share with our audience how can they find you, and also share some information about your book first. Before you even go to TMG, I want you to share more information about your book.
So my book is I Am a Miracle and You Are Too, Paxton's Journey Through the NICU. And I'm looking at my live as well too. You can purchase this book, hardback or paperback, on Amazon.com, BarnesandNobles.com, Target.com, Walmart.com, or simply click on the link in my bio, at Mrs.tmg, and the information is there as well. But
I love it. That's a beautiful book. Hold it up again. Let me see. I love that book. That's beautiful. Yes. Yeah, y'all definitely support. Yes. Support our Black authors. Support our author. It's beautiful.
Y'all a little. And these are like all pictures. Every picture that's in this book are pictures that are from my phone. My illustrator. I sent these pictures to my illustrator, and he like drew it straight from my the pic. This is an actual letter that Paxton gave me for Mother's Day, and this is the actual. Yeah, this is it, and this is everything that was in it. Yeah.
Tiffany, I love this so much. I love this. Yeah, you put a lot of thought.
Happy, yeah.
A lot of heart into this
journey, or that needs some inspiration. Paxton is 6 now. He's thriving. He's in kindergarten, about to go to first grade. He plays baseball. He knows he's going to the MLB one day.
Yes, ma'am.
And everything. He's thriving. So he's truly a miracle.
I love it. I love that so much. Thank you, Christy. Thank you so much for sharing
that. Also on my business page is tmg.events. You can find me there as well. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Tiffany. Thank you. And again, I appreciate you. It's been an honor to have you here to chat with me tonight. And we'll do it again for sure. So thank you. Again. And those of you, before we close out, I do have my book, Boss Moms Move Differently, for those of you. Yes, Boss Moms Move Differently. Yes, please. And if you know any moms who may be in need, because this whole podcast that is going to be launched officially summer of this year, we are focusing on wellness, lifestyle, and business for women. All right. So that's what it's focusing on. And a lot of what I'm putting here in the book is around the same topic, but it's really to help women, just to helping moms. And it's really for women. It really can be for anybody, but really helping them to rediscover themselves and really learn what works for them, and getting to a point where you're accomplishing some of your goals and your dreams. That's the biggest thing. That's what we want. We want everybody to live aligned lives where your personal and your professional life is all in alignment. So I want you guys to go grab a copy as well. Thank you for that. All right, everyone, we're going to go ahead. I'm sorry.
Amazon.
It's on Amazon. Yep. You can go to Amazon, or you can go directly to my site, which is bmmdbook.com.
Okay.
Yep.
You do.
Thank you, girl. Thank you so much. All right, everyone. I hope you all have a fantastic night. Tiffany, I hope you have a great night. Thank you again for sacrificing your time. And I'll catch you all next week, next Thursday at 8:30 p.m.